What up, guys? So recently there was a video of a black belt who got pissed off at a purple belt and punched him in the face, also landed in a triangle, for what looked to be like a sloppy choke that turned into a neck crank. And one of my loyal Chew Crew members, that's my email subscription, which is free. If you guys want to get my daily email, you can check the links down below. His name is Jared. Jared sent me the video and said, Chewy, what is your bearded opinion on this? His words, by the way, not mine. He must read a few of my emails. But he was asking what my bearded opinion on was of this black belt punching the purple belt in the face. So let's watch the video and I'll break it down for you and I'll tell you what I think about it. So yeah, in the video, the black belt gets pissed off about what looks to be a purple belt applying a arm triangle choke. He said it was a neck crank, punches him in the face, the whole thing turns into debacle, right? So what do I think about it? Well, I mean, the TLDR version of it, right, is that the black belt was in the wrong. I don't care if the guy had just had neck surgery and he said, hey bro, don't crank my neck, don't put me in chokes, whatever. If the guy did it, you can always tap. If the guy is being unsafe or whatever, you can always take a walk or, find a different partner. You can always do that, right? That said, I can't point the finger I saw a lot of this on the social media comments. I can't point the finger at the black belt because I've done stuff like this before. Never through hands, but I'll tell you guys a story about where I kind of was in the wrong with that kind of thing. And also let's talk about the idea of like, what are people actually submitting for tapping to when you get put into a submission? Because it's important to understand that for training etiquette. That's really what I want to break down for any of you guys that are in jiu-jitsu. I feel like that's one of my things that I share with you guys a lot. This is one of the things a lot of people have said that, oh, Chewy, you helped basically identify some of these unwritten rules or some of the culture of jiu-jitsu that help make this thing easier. So let's talk about training etiquette a bit. But before I do that, I saw a bunch of people in the comments on these social media, posts or whatever, where people were talking about how jiu-jitsu guys, anytime it turns into a real fight, jiu-jitsu guys talk about how jiu-jitsu is such a good fighting art, but then whenever it turns into a real fight, they start throwing hands. What gives jiu-jitsu guys, right? And this is people that obviously want to talk trash about our South American ground karate. Well, the idea is, bro, that if you look at boxers, they do the same thing. You look at boxers and kickboxers, a lot of times once, the veil of sport competition is broken through and the guys are just ready to fight each other, all of a sudden they start grabbing each other and hugging each other and trying to, punch at the same time. It all ends up looking like a sort of an MMA fight at some point, right? So there's that. MMA is what it all turns into. Now, let's talk about submissions. When you put someone into a submission, what is that person actually tapping to, right? Well, think about it this way. If you put me in an arm bar, you have my arm straightened out. I'm not tapping to the fact that my arm's straight. Look at that. I can do that myself. You're tapping to the fact about what's going to happen next, the threat of what's going to happen next. You're going to keep going until my arm breaks, the tendons start to snap, right? Bad stuff's going to happen in a moment. I tap for that reason, the threat of it. Same thing if you put me in a heel hook. I'm not tapping because my leg is locked to the side of your ribs. I'm tapping to the fact that if you keep going, you could shred through my knee ligaments and tendons, that you could pop my ankle or break something. I'm tapping to the threat. And likewise, when it comes to chokes, what we're actually tapping to is the threat of going unconscious, where all of a sudden we're in the choke and the lights start to kind of come in and you're like, oh, better tap out to that because you know what's going to happen next. Now with neck cranks, it's a little different. Now I would tell you that there are guys I've trained with, some catch wrestlers, who apply neck cranks really well, and the threat of that, like something happening to your neck, is plainly there. With a sloppy choke that turns into a crank, it basically just annoys you, starts to apply pressure, and a lot of times you're faced with this weighing out of options. We're competitive in the gym, we're all trying to win, it just is what it is. And I'm now weighing out, do I want to continue fighting? I got put into the sloppy neck crank. I could eat this if I wanted to, but if I do that, I'm probably going to be walking around stiff necked for the rest of the week. I'll tap, right? Or we might see it as, God, this guy's putting on the sloppiest choke. It's not there. Why is he still squeezing? That kind of thing, right? Wrongly or rightly, that's kind of what goes through people's minds, right? And so we're looking at the sloppy choke that becomes a neck crank as a unclean choke, an unclean submission that the person shouldn't pursue. And there could be all kinds of reasons why this is happening. It could be that the person is overly competitive and they're like, I don't care, I'm just gonna squeeze the crap out of this person's neck, I'm gonna get that submission. Or what it usually is they just don't know how to finish it properly. I can tell you that in competitions, I will eat neck cranks for days. I remember one competition, I got put into a neck crank for like 2 minutes. I ended up beating the guy once I got my head out, went to the rest of the competition, won the matches, won the competition, got gold medal. But for the next week, I was stiff as a board. My neck was jacked up. If someone said my name, I had to turn. Look, my whole body, I couldn't turn my neck. And this is why, honestly, in the gym, I don't even mess with neck cranks. The juice isn't worth a squeeze, right? Because in the gym, I'm trying to look for the cleanest submission, the cleanest choke or strangle, which is, I guess, the technical right term, right? Whatever it is, the cleanest submission I can get with control that allows them to keep training with no risk of injury, right? And neck cranks, if they're sloppily applied, or even sometimes if they're well applied, you start applying a neck crank and you start jacking their necks up, that's a fast way for me to ruin a training partner. Because again, you get your neck jacked up. That's a good career ender for a jiu-jitsu practitioner. So the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I would rather attack all the other stuff that we have, because it's not like we don't have hundreds of other submissions we can play with, and then I just kind of stay away from the neck cranks. Now in a competition or something, whatever. But in the gym, safe, as much as I can be, clean submissions as much as I can, focus on them in control, right? That's what I'm looking for. And so a lot of times in the gym, people will get pissy about those neck cranks, sometimes wrongly, right? I could say sometimes it could be in the right, because they feel like this person's applying a sloppy neck crank and they're just sort of disregarding your health and safety. Now, most of the time I would tell you that it's usually just people who don't know how to apply the submission correctly. Like the other day, I had one of my blue belts who put me also in an arm triangle. He's putting it in there and it's not quite there. And again, I'm in that situation where I'm like, I think I could get out of this. He seems really hell-bent on squeezing, so I'm just gonna tap because I don't wanna have my neck jacked up. We get back to rolling, not pissed off, no punches, nothing. And then later on, after the session was over, I brought him over and said, hey bro, come here real quick. And I showed him how to do I showed him some adjustments, how to do a better arm triangle choke. So this way, if he ever goes to a competition and he's got some rough dude who's ready to eat the neck crank, he can actually make him go to sleep. Make him go night-night, right? And actually get that submission or get the finish that way. Now, I didn't come up to him and say, hey, bro, you didn't really finish me. That wasn't a real submission or anything. I just was like, hey, I want to make you better, right? Because at one point, some of my chokes were like that. They were sloppy and kind of cranky. However, I have been in situations where I've had guys just come up and do like some crazy neck cranks that were really sloppy and jack my neck up in a way where it wasn't even about them doing a sloppy choke. It was just them ripping things. And again, that point, I don't take kindly to that. I tend to stay away from those people or, because I don't want to mess with it. Now, as I said earlier, I've been in the wrong on this kind of thing. And this is why I don't want to like sort of virtue signal and wag the finger like a lot of people on social media like to do. By the way, if that's what you're looking for in this video, I'm not going to do it. I saw a lot of it in the comments. People were like, I would never do such a thing, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but you've done other dumb stuff, haven't you? We've all done some dumb shit. This guy's he had his video taped and then it got shared around, right? So I'm just like, I'm not gonna do that because I've done stupid stuff. Like one guy, I remember years ago, one of my blue belts put me in an ankle lock. This is probably, almost 14 years ago, a long time ago. He puts me in an ankle lock. I get up and I start going at him super intense after he submits me, right? To the point where looking back on it, it was inappropriate. It was just too much. I could have started rolling with him and catch him and stuff, but it was inappropriate. I was being too rough. But after the round was over, he mentioned something to me that kind of put me in check, and he didn't mean to. But that's what happened, because he said, man, I knew I was in trouble when I saw the Chewy face, so I just had to buckle in and go on defense. And I said, Chewy face, what are you talking about, bro? And he said, dude, when you get caught in a submission, your face changes. All of a sudden his face changes, and that's when they all kind of, some of my other students were there and were like, collectively we're like, yeah, dude, then it's just like, you got to be ready for it, because you're going to come at us like 10 times harder. And then I'm thinking, I'm supposed to be the coach here. I'm the leader of this thing. I am going to set the culture, the example for everybody else to follow. That ain't a good example. So I was like, okay, bro, I appreciate you letting me know. And so I tried to get better at it, right? Where anytime I feel that anger, that frustration, that whatever, I walk off to the side, take a breather, come back. It's okay, man. my moment where I was most pleased with myself is one of my students. He kneed me and broke my damn nose. I mean, my nose was shattered in 3 places, was set off on the other side of my face, required surgery, the whole deal. And it was the dumbest move ever. I don't know why he did it. He doesn't know why he did it. It was just an accident. But nonetheless, I shot him for a takedown. He kneed me right in the face. I don't know why he did it. He was normally a great roll, but he just made a stupid movement. And normal young me would have got up and, I mean, just would have gotten angry at him. Instead, I got up. I remember looking at all my students and everybody was like, "Ah, your nose is broken, whatever." And then he looked at me and he was like terrified because he had hurt me. And I said, "Hold on a second, I'll be right back." I went and looked at my nose, it's all messed up, and I come back and he's so sorry. "I'm so sorry." "It's cool, man. It's cool." Right? Now, for a moment, I was angry as hell, right? But I was like, take a breath. He didn't mean to, just chill. Let's get ourselves together. I want to be in control, right? And I think that's kind of a cool thing we can get in jiu-jitsu sometimes is we're working with the good stuff, obviously the camaraderie and everything else, but sometimes we're working with the darker sides, the rougher sides of ourselves, right? And the last thing that I would tell you guys is that sometimes jiu-jitsu isn't so pretty. You know, I've talked to dozens of people who have trained in really good gyms that have great cultures that, you know, produce champions that have like this great environment of camaraderie and the whole deal. And there are times where you get some people that are getting after each other and emotions can run high. People can start chirping at each other and all of a sudden they can be at each other's throats, ready to fight, whatever. You break them up and then sometimes, you know, most of the time they just bro hug it out and then it's squashed, right? I remember years ago, one of the guys at the gym, for whatever reason, got angry at me. So he starts pushing me. He's calling me names and whatever. And I thought we were about to fight. This is also, by the way, at the time where I'm fighting MMA. I was a pro fighter at the time. So I'm in my stance and I'm like, I don't want to fight on the mats, but I guess I'll have to if you start throwing punches. We bro hug it out afterwards and it's like no big deal, right? And then we were back to training later that session as if it never happened. And I've talked to guys who literally, the guy that's on the sideline cheering for him the hardest, that dude at some point, they came to blows with each other. So sometimes it doesn't happen often in good gyms, but it can still happen sometimes. And it just is what it is, right? It's just the reality of the situation. Sometimes guys are filled of testosterone and stupidity. And sometimes like guys were like me when I was a young black belt who was getting pissed off about being submitted and made the face and got angry. I was full of insecure, egotism. So there's that too. And I would also tell you guys, I'm just jumping around a little bit, but you have to be on guard with this, as you climb the pecking order, because it's very easy in the beginning when you're the white belt to be like, I'm supposed to get smashed. It just happens, whatever, right? But then as you start to climb, you start to put this sort of false belief that you're somehow not supposed to get submitted or that it's wrong to get submitted by lesser belts or whatever dumb stuff you come up with. I would just share with you that I get submitted like every week. I just got done training 2 hours ago and I got submitted multiple times in that training session because I'm trying to work on stuff. I'm trying to put myself into positions to work on my defense and everything else. And sometimes I also just get caught because I've got good training partners who are lower belts sometimes, right? Never get caught in the trap of thinking, I'm not supposed to tap to someone because they're a blue belt or whatever. They've only been training for 1 year. It doesn't matter. If you get caught, you get caught. Just part of it. You made a mistake. That's the way that it works, right? Learn from it. Get better from it. Be on guard about that, right? But kind of going back to it, one last tip that I would give you guys, because we've already talked about the black belt is when and wrong, all that stuff. We talked about the submissions, what you're actually tapping to. If you're applying a choke to someone, like an arm triangle choke, and you're applying that choke, and you got 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, and they're not tapping, they're not making any fidgeting motion, you don't feel like they're getting ready to tap, just let go and ask them. I know this maybe seems contrary to what some people would do, but I do this, and this has helped my submission so much. Let go and ask the person what they feel so that you can make an adjustment and try to figure it out. Because if you're squeezing really hard on that choke and it's been like 3, 4, 5 seconds and they're not submitting, it probably isn't there. So you can let go and you can say, hey man, is it there? What do you feel? Da, da, da. And you can troubleshoot that a bit. An example of this was I was rolling with one of the guys who has better leg locks than me. And this is a couple years back. I put what I thought was a damn good heel hook on it. I'm applying the pressure and I'm slowly tightening everything up, extending my hips into it. And I'm waiting for the tap. And he just sort of looks like he's, getting ready to take a nap. He's not really that worried at all. And I keep applying pressure, but he's not tapping. So I asked him, said, hey bro, I let go. I was like, hey, what do you feel right now? And he said, oh, well, you're missing this, this, and this. He showed me a couple little key points that I was missing. I said, oh, okay. So then we ratcheted back into the position. I was like, can I try this real quick? He said, yeah, go ahead. And then he's like, oh, there it is. And that helped me out a bunch with my heel hooks. It made them tighter because now I have a better feel of what it should be like when I'm actually finishing. And so that can be a really useful tool. If you've got training partners in your gym that you're close to, that you feel comfortable with, the whole deal, if you put them in a submission hold, whatever it might be, arm lock, choke, whatever, if they're not submitting to it and you're applying pressure and you feel like you're at the point where they should normally tap, but they're not tapping, talk to them. You might find that they're double jointed. You might find that you're missing a little detail, or your shoulder isn't under the chin like it should be to choke them, whatever it is. It can help you troubleshoot and develop tighter chokes, the tighter submission holds, everything else. And so, yeah, Jared, first off, thank you for the question. And again, if you were expecting me to give you the, again, the talk trash about someone, it just isn't my thing. And again, it's because I am empathetic to people, because I know I've done some dumb stuff. Never threw hands at people like jiu-jitsu guys like that. But again, I've overdone it sometimes, and I've been hot on the mats as far as like my anger and things like that. It just is what it is. But yeah, black belt was in the wrong. We tapped because of the threat, not because of what's happening. And again, you can make your submissions better by tuning in and checking in with your training partner if they're not tapping to them. And so again, this has been a long video, but hopefully you guys have gotten something out of this. If you have any stories similar to this, feel free to share them down in the comments below. And if you guys want to join my daily email where I share different ideas, books I'm reading, just whatever I want to share with you that I think might be useful, you can check that comment, or there's probably a pinned comment or down in the description below. Hope you guys are doing well and getting some good training in, and I'll talk to you next time.